tonight is taken from Acts 8, starting at verse 30 here. And he commanded the chariot to stop, and they both went down to the water. Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized him. And when they came up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord carried Philip away, and the eunuch saw him no more. And went on to go with Philip.
Well, good evening, everybody. I apologize. I have a PowerPoint. I just failed to get my computer set up, so we'll see what we can get going here. Good. Let's see, how does that look? Maybe that'll help a little bit. Tonight I want to talk about a passion for Christ. Passion for Christ. When I was a kid, maybe some of you remember this show. I remember watching a show, I believe it came on Nick at Night, I could be mistaken. And of course it was reruns, but it was from the 80s. And it was called, I think it was Kids Say the Craziest Things or Kids Say the Darndest Things. And it was hosted by Bill Cosby. And it had, I just remember as a kid watching this, and the things that the kids would say would just always blow my mind. I was like, I cannot believe they said that. Kids have a way of doing that, don't they? They have a way of being so brutally honest in such an innocent way that it just leaves us kind of flabbergasted, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I wanted to share with you a story that I read about a little girl. And this little girl, she was visiting her grandmother, and her and her grandmother were sitting together by the fire. She was sitting at the foot of her grandmother, and they were having deep conversations about life and all kinds of meaningful things. And this little girl, she asked her grandmother, she says, "What is a Christian, Grandma?" And the grandmother says, "Christian is someone who loves Jesus, who loves doing good, who is kind and welcoming and open." The little girl paused for a minute and thought to herself, and she said, "Where can I find one of them Christians anyway?" And you know, that simple, honest truth slaps you in the face like a ton of bricks, doesn't it? Where is our passion oftentimes? Where is our passion for God? Our passion for Christ? It's funny, you know, if you type in the words passion or zeal on Google, you will come up with this Asian boy band. So I thought, because I was trying to find some kind of picture for zeal or for passion, and literally this was all I could find for like 3 pages. So I was like, I'll just put that up there. The dictionary defines passion as an intense or overpowering emotion, a strong liking for a subject or an activity. Where is our intense and overpowering emotion for Christ? Our strong liking for Christ? Where is it? Because a lot of times that little girl is right in her assessment. I believe first and foremost that having a passion for Christ is being excited to be a follower of Christ. Being excited to bear that name. Being joyous about that. Putting ourselves on the back burner and putting Christ first. And being glad to do it. Being happy to do it. Putting Christ first in everything that we say, everything that we think, and everything that we do. Now, sometimes this gets a little confused. Having a passion for Christianity does not mean ignoring sin. Because that's what in the modern world, that's what a lot of people try to do. They try to ignore the fact that sin is real, ignore the fact that sin has very real consequences, and a byproduct of that is where they just talk about feel-good things all the time. That's not what true passion is. Passion is teaching and preaching the truth, spreading the truth no matter what it is. You know, like this morning, I wouldn't exactly call this morning's sermon a feel-good sermon in many ways. We talked about mistakes. We talked about mistakes that we cannot afford to make in this life, and how if you rebel against God, like we looked at Revelation 21, you have eternity in the lake of fire to look forward to. That's not something, I'll be honest with you, that's not on the top of my list of what I want to talk about. That's not exactly fun for me. I mean, but it's something that's needed. We are called to proclaim the whole counsel of God. And having a passion for Christianity does not silence some aspect of the truth. A passion for Christianity brings out the entire truth. And a passion for Christianity recognizes what God has done for us, what God continues to do for us, and reveals a lot to us about our identity, who we are in Christ Jesus. A passion changes everything. And I heard a song, I can't remember the name. Maybe some of you that, I know I've conversed with some of you and you like Christian music and stuff. Maybe some of you know this better than I do. But I remember hearing a Christian song on the radio just as I was driving down the road. And it said, there was a line in the song, it said, "No one knows what we're for, only what we're against." And just like with the little girl and her grandmother, that particular line has always hit me like a ton of bricks. If we have a passion for teaching Christ crucified, if we have a passion for proclaiming the wonderful life that He's given us, then that's going to change everything. That's going to change the way that we approach people. That's going to change the way that we approach life, just the way that we think, the way that we speak, the way that we act. Because we know, and it's tried and true, we know that if we come ripping and roaring out of the gate just negative and really pushy, really negative, we know that that's not effective. What is effective and what is infectious is a passion for God. And when we talk about passion, I can't help but talk about Phineas. And I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. I was not expecting this. I showed you this picture this morning, and this is supposed to be a painting of Phineas. I kid you not. When I typed in Phineas on Google Images, apparently there is another rock band by the name of Phineas. And so I had to look really hard for this picture of Phineas. I don't know what, I guess I was on a roll that day. I don't know what it was. But Phineas was a man with a passion for God. He was the grandson of Aaron. And if my math is correct, and by the way, I know that's not math, but he was Moses' great nephew. I want us to look at his story in Numbers 25. Numbers 25 verses 6 through 13. And this is a story in the life of Phineas, in the story of God's people that I feel like we don't look at enough, but this is really, really cool. Numbers 25 verses 6 through 13. And I want us to look at what he does here. And behold, one of the people of Israel came and brought a Midianite woman into his family, into the sight of Moses and into the sight of the whole congregation of the people of Israel, while they were weeping in the entrance to the tent of meeting. Now check this out. Verse 7, when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, when he saw that this guy brought this Midianite woman in, he got up, left the congregation, and took a spear in his hand, and went after the man of Israel into their chamber, and pierced both of them, the man of Israel and the woman, through her belly. Thus the plague on the people of Israel was stopped. Nevertheless, those who died by the plague were 24,000. And the Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, has turned back my wrath from the people of Israel, in that he was jealous with my jealousy among them, so that I did not consume the people of Israel in my jealousy. Therefore say, Behold, I have given him my covenant of peace, and it shall be to him and his descendants after him the covenant of perpetual priesthood, because he was jealous for his God and made atonement for the people of Israel. Now, if that's not zealousness, if that's not passion, then I don't know what is, to be honest with you. Now, let me say first and foremost, I am not advocating for anybody to go kill anybody else. I'm not advocating for you to pick up a spear and go kill people. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that the P in Phineas is for passion. We need to emulate his passion for God, because basically what happened is this Israelite guy, he takes a foreign woman. He gets this Midianite woman. We know what comes with that. False deities, false religious rituals, all of these pagan customs and practices that go right against the grain of what God expects of his people. And this guy just welcomes her in. But notice, he brought her before the people, and this was a public thing. I mean, obviously it was recorded for us in Scripture. All of this was public. This was happening. I don't know if he was planning on fornicating with this lady or committing some other kind of sexual sin, but something was awry. We know that this was not how God wanted his people to behave. And Phineas recognizes this. He recognizes right off the bat that this goes against what God said. This is a sin against God. And he hated the sin so much that he took up his spear and killed both of them. Think about that. I mean, just let's think about not only would it have been so much easier just to not do anything. It would have been so much easier just to have ignored it. But think about the danger he's putting himself in. It says he rushed into their chambers. This guy could have defended himself. Phineas very well could have been killed. But that wasn't what was important to Phineas. Defending God and standing up for the truth was more important than his own life. And a lot of times, we take that very attitude of, it's not my problem. As a matter of fact, on Facebook, I saw Facebook is the land of memes. And, we see all these different, and I saw a meme this past week, and it was a picture of a fire burning a house, and that was in the background, and there was a girl walking her dog on the sidewalk in front of this house. And I forget what the text said exactly, but it said, "This is my level of minding my own business this week." And the idea was, this house was burning, and this woman was like, "Not my problem. I'm just going to walk my dog and go about my business." A lot of times we have that attitude. I have that attitude a lot, I'm ashamed to say. We have that attitude of, it's not my problem, it's not my business, let people do what they want to do, whatever. Not Phineas. He saw this sin, he knew what was right and what was wrong, and he was passionate. I think we can say he was real passionate. I mean, like I said, the P in Phineas is for passion. I'm advocating that we emulate that passion for Christ, that we emulate that passion for spreading love and joy and hope of the God of all creation and the Lord of salvation to this world, this lost and dying world that so desperately needs it. I'm advocating that we not have this apathetic attitude where we think, oh, it's not my problem, because it is our problem. Spreading the truth is our responsibility. The second point is the first century church. I think there can be little doubt that the first century church, the Christians in the first century, had a passion for Christ Jesus. If we look at the story of the Ethiopian eunuch, Acts chapter 8, Acts chapter 8, verses 38 and 39. And he commanded the chariot to stop, and they both went down into the water, Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized him. And when they came up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord carried Philip away, and the eunuch saw him no more. And what? He went on his way rejoicing. Rejoicing. Now, the word used here for rejoice is not just a woohoo, okay, yeah. No, this guy was happy. I mean, he was ecstatic, because he understood that his sins had just been washed away by being buried with Christ in baptism. He understood. Because remember, when this scene first opens up, what's he reading from? He's reading from Isaiah 53. And Philip begins right there, the prophecy of Jesus Christ. From that prophecy, and preaches Christ crucified to him. And all that entails preaching what Christ's sacrifice meant, and what the blood of Christ does. And so he rejoiced at the understanding of the fact that Christ's blood had washed his sins away. He was ecstatic. He went on his way rejoicing. I mean, I picture a guy who, is just jumping for joy. Just ecstatic. Beyond comprehension, just rejoicing in everything that he has, with everything that he has. And I think about this, and I'll use myself as the scapegoat for this. When Alabama wins the national championship, which, by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, they've won a couple. See what I did there? What do I do? I usually will spend an hour compiling research about how our win-loss percentage is better than Auburn's, and we've been to more bowl games, and we've had more championships and more success. And I'll post this on Facebook, and I'll just gently poke at my fellow Alabama friends who are of that persuasion. And for the next, I know I'll have a group text with all of my buddies, and we'll, for the next couple of weeks, every day on Facebook, we'll be like, yeah, Alabama's the best. Bow down before the Crimson Tide. If your team wins the Super Bowl, you're ecstatic. I get so ecstatic about a silly little game that doesn't matter, and I post about it every day on Facebook for a month or whatever. I do these things. I don't know, maybe your team wins the Super Bowl or something. My point is, we get so excited about these worldly things that have no consequence, that are not important in the grand scheme of things. Where's our passion for Christ? That's something that we have to bring inward. Do I get a group text with my friend, talk about how awesome Christ is? Do I post on Facebook about how awesome the God that I serve is? Not nearly enough. I don't do it nearly enough. And I think it's important for us to remember this. I think it's important for this passion to be awakened within us, for us to be as excited about God as we are all of these other things. It's a powerful truth. The realization that God the Son came here for you and for me, bled and died, and is standing in victory this very moment, is alive this very moment, also that we have the opportunity to be reconciled to God. That, if there's ever anything worth being passionate about, that is it. That is where our hearts and minds and our enthusiasm should be directed. And tonight, as we close, I sort of chuckle, because this morning I was about halfway through my points, and I looked up at the clock and I was like, "Whoa! I gotta put the hustle on this." So I started churning them points out. I figured I would take it a little easy tonight. I figured I would shorten it a little bit. As we close tonight, I want to mainly, first and foremost, I want to direct this at myself, encourage myself, but encourage all of us to have that zeal, that passion for Christ, that passion for God, that passion that allows us to share that with the world. And if you're here tonight and you are not a Christian, or if you are and you've fallen off the wagon, there's no better time like the present to rekindle that fire, to build that passion once again. And thankfully, God is so loving and so gracious that He gives us every opportunity to do so. And He makes it wonderfully convenient in all of His wisdom and all of His love. And so if we can do anything to help you tonight, whether it's to obey Christ by putting on Him in baptism, or if you just need the prayers of the congregation, we're a family. We're here for you. We love you. And we'll encourage you. Please come while we stand and while we sing. I know the Lord will find us.